Thank you very much, Cheryl. Thank you, Netroots Nation. We live in a cheating economy. It's a cheating economy that's built on the twin pillars of fear and corruption. I want to tell you a story about an experience I've had just in the past week that has illuminated the consequences of this cheating economy. I grew up in Orange County, California. My mom raised me by herself. We didn't have a lot when I was growing up, but one of the things we always loved was going to the public beaches. And as you've seen on TV, the Syrian images, we are facing an ecological disaster in Southern California that is unlike any we've seen in 30 years because of a major oil spill off of the coast of Orange County. Here in California, the state that's perceived as this beacon of progressivism, 9,014 oil and gas permits have been approved during the term of Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom. And it's forced me to reflect again on why is it that in the place that's supposed to be the beacon of progressivism, in the place where I grew up, the public beaches that are home to so many people that don't have anything else they can afford to do, muddied by oil and fossil fuel. And it fundamentally is because we have a cheating economy built on fear and corruption. And that cheating economy is protected by a wall that I call the "it's too expensive" wall. For 30 years, since I was a kid in my early teens, I'm 42 now, we all have heard time and again, it's too expensive and we can't afford it. But what COVID has revealed is how that's always been a lie. COVID has reminded us that we could afford trillions of dollars for a war that was based on a lie. COVID has reminded us that when Wall Street needed a multi-trillion-dollar bailout, we didn't think twice. And COVID again showed us that when big corporations needed trillions of dollars, we didn't think twice. But whenever it comes to a matter of confronting crisis that is central to living with human dignity, the climate crisis, the poverty crisis, we're always told we can't afford it. And that's a lie told by people who are paid off by industries that make money, keeping us on the wrong side of this wall called too expensive. On the other side of this wall called too expensive are pharmaceutical companies that donate to Senator Kyrsten Sinema, are the oil and gas companies that donate to Senator Manchin, and are the insurance companies like Blue Shield that donate to Governor Gavin Newsom. The builders of this wall that I call the too expensive wall are often portrayed as the other in the far right of the Republican Party. But the reality is the so-called experts who have told us these lies now for decades exist in both political parties and outside both political parties. When we wonder why we can't have aggressive climate action, when we wonder why we can't raise the minimum wage, when we wonder why we can't be serious about tackling the poverty crisis, you don't need a PhD in political science to know the answer. Just follow the money. Just follow the money to our cheating economy that works like this. In our cheating economy, businesses are rewarded for the longer they break the rules in ways that they can't be caught. Because by the time that they are caught for breaking the rules or lying, they become so big and have so much market power that the fines that regulators impose on them for cheating are just puny compared to the balance sheets that they've accumulated. They laugh at us all the way to the bank. Well, for decades, they cheat and lie their way to market power. Now, you don't need a PhD in economics to know these companies. They're the fossil fuel companies that for decades lied to us about the risks that their industry poses to the climate crisis. They're the health insurance companies that continue to stand between us and single-payer health insurance, even in a progressive state like California. They are the oil companies and the utility companies like PG&E who sprinkle money all around state capitals, including in my home of California, so we don't have a real Green New Deal. And right now, they are holding hostage the progressive agenda that we worked hard to elect in 2020. The reason that we don't have a $15 minimum wage, the reason that we're looking at a massive cut to this aggressive bill, which should have been 10 trillion and is heading down to 1.5 trillion or less, is because of the businesses that are economically interested in keeping us behind this wall of it's too expensive. But here's the problem. If we don't break down this wall of it's too expensive, the next 30 years are going to contain crises that are even worse than the last 30. Looking back, the lie of it's too expensive, the illusion that we can't question the so-called experts, has sent us in to wars, to economic crisis, and has kept us away from the progressive future that actually the majority wants. If we don't break down that wall of it's too expensive, what we're going to face in the next 30 years is a democracy that is a memory, a planet that is no longer inhabitable. To conclude, I want to add some insights that can bring directly from the private sector that I hope will encourage you to keep fighting against this wall of it's too expensive, this wall that's based on a lie. Industry that buys these politicians tell us that if we do something like cancel student debt, we'll create a generation of people that are lazy. But I can tell you from my firsthand experience in business that when you cancel debt, you unlock an explosion of consumption that stimulates economic growth and better paying jobs. These industries that buy our politicians will tell you that if we have a higher minimum wage, we'll have $30 hamburgers. But I can tell you as a co-founder of a business that itself has raised our minimum wage to $25. When you pay people a living wage, you don't have $30 hamburgers. You have people who can afford life's basic needs. And in conclusion, they tell us that we can't afford to be serious about the climate crisis. They tell us that the companies that are going to save the day are the same fossil fuel companies that have gotten us into this crisis. If it weren't so tragic, it would be funny that they're telling us to trust the oil companies that have put us on the brink of extinction with the moral charge of defeating the climate crisis. But of all those crises, most of all, we can't afford not to act. Right now, it's the coast of where I grew up in Orange County. Tomorrow, it'll be on your doorstep. Climate catastrophe is all around us. We have to do everything we can in our own lives to take action, but we can't defeat the climate crisis without big, bold government action. And we can't get that big, bold government action until we tear down that wall called it's too expensive, that surrounds and protects this cheating economy that's built on fear and corruption. And so in closing, I urge you, break down that wall.